He walked into federal court on July 24, 2002, wearing a pale blue cardigan. He was 78 years old. He had founded a company from nothing. He had built it into the sixth largest cable provider in the entire United States, and he had stolen from it, not occasionally, not quietly, systematically, for years. The company was Adelphia Communications. The man was John Rigas, and by the time anyone figured out what he had done, $2.30 billion was gone. John Rigas was born on November 14, 1924, in Wellsville, New York, the son of Greek immigrants, a World War II veteran, a man who believed, genuinely believed, that hard work built something real. In 1952, he scraped together $300 and bought a single cable television franchise in Coudersport, Pennsylvania. Population, 2,600 people. He named it Adelphia, after the Greek word for brothers. That name would mean something later, something dark. He built Adelphia slowly, cable by cable, town by town, through the 1960s and 1970s. He was not flashy. He was not famous. He was a small-town operator who happened to be very, very good at acquisition. By the 1990s, Adelphia had swallowed hundreds of smaller companies. It was operating in 32 states. It had 5.7 million cable subscribers, and John Rigas had brought his sons into the business. Timothy Rigas became CFO. Michael Rigas ran operations. James Rigas handled strategy. The family didn't just run Adelphia, they were Adelphia. That is where the rot started. Not with greed exactly, with entanglement. The Rigas family treated Adelphia's treasury like a shared checking account. The line between company money and family money did not blur. It vanished. John Rigas used $13 million in Adelphia funds to build a golf course on family land in Coudersport. He used company money to buy timber rights in Pennsylvania and New York. He charged personal expenses, furniture, landscaping, Christmas gifts, directly to Adelphia accounts. And that was before the loans. Starting in the late 1990s, Adelphia began issuing what it called co-borrowing arrangements. The Rigas family borrowed money alongside Adelphia, using the company as collateral. On paper, it looked like routine corporate financing. In reality, the family was siphoning billions. By 2001, the Rigas family had taken $2.3 billion in off-balance sheet loans. Loans that Adelphia was responsible for. Loans that never appeared in the company's public filings. Investors had no idea. Analysts had no idea. The board, stacked with Rigas loyalists, looked the other way. Timothy Rigas, the CFO, was the architect of the concealment. He was 47 years old, meticulous and fluent in the language of accounting obfuscation. He structured the loans to stay invisible. He managed the relationships with lenders. He signed the documents. Later, prosecutors would describe him as the one who made the fraud technically possible. Without Timothy, John's ambitions would have had no mechanism. Together, they built a machine that could steal at scale. The cable industry was booming in the late 1990s. Nobody asked hard questions when revenues were climbing. Adelphia was expanding into Los Angeles, buying Century Communications for $5.2 billion in 2000. The stock was trading above $30 a share. Analysts called it undervalued. Institutional investors loaded up. Pension funds, retirement accounts, real people parking real money into what they believed was a real company. And through all of it, the Rigas family kept borrowing, kept hiding, kept spending. The first crack appeared on March 27, 2002. Adelphia disclosed almost as a footnote in an earnings release that it had $2.3 billion in off-balance sheet debt linked to Rigas family partnerships. The footnote was buried, but someone found it. Within 48 hours, financial journalists and short sellers had pulled the thread. The stock dropped 35% in a single day. Then it kept falling. By May, The stock had lost more than 90% of its value. The company that had been worth $10 billion was evaporating in real time. On May 23, 2002, the Rigas family was forced out of Adelphia entirely. John Rigas, the founder, was removed from the company he had built over 50 years. Federal investigators were already inside. The SEC had opened a formal investigation. The Department of Justice had convened a grand jury. Adelphia filed for bankruptcy on June 25, 2002, one of the largest bankruptcy filings in American history at that point. 60,000 employees watched their jobs become uncertain overnight. The pension fund, which had been heavily invested in Adelphia stock, was devastated. On July 24, 2002, federal agents arrested John Rigas, Timothy Rigas, and Michael Rigas at their Manhattan apartment building on the Upper West Side. They were walked out in handcuffs. The images ran on every news channel. An old man in a cardigan, his sons flanking him. The scene was almost unbearable to watch, and not because anyone felt sorry for them, because the scale of the betrayal was becoming visible. These men had looked their employees, their investors, their community in the eye for decades, and they had been lying the entire time. The trial began in 2004. Assistant U.S. Attorney James McMahon laid out 23 months of fraud in methodical, devastating detail. Witnesses described the culture inside Adelphia's Cudasport headquarters, a culture where questioning the Rigas family was simply not done. One former executive testified that expense reports for the family were processed without review. Another described a company-funded helicopter used for family ski trips. The jury deliberated for 8 days. On July 8, 2004, John Rigas was found guilty on 18 counts of securities fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy. Timothy Rigas was convicted on 23 counts. John Rigas was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. He was 80 years old. Timothy received 17 years. Michael Rigas, who cooperated with investigators, avoided prison time but was barred from serving as an officer of any public company. John Rigas reported to federal prison in January 2006. He served 6 years before being released in 2008 on medical grounds. He had prostate cancer. He died on October 24, 2021, at the age of 96. He never publicly apologized. The victims were never fully repaid. Adelphia was eventually sold to Time Warner and Comcast in 2006 for $17.6 billion, enough to satisfy creditors, but not shareholders. The ordinary investors who had trusted the Rigas name lost everything they put in. Former employees who had held stock options watched those options become worthless paper. The town of Cudasport, Pennsylvania, the place where John Rigas had started with $300, lost its largest employer virtually overnight. What makes the Adelphia case genuinely unsettling is not the scale, it is the intimacy. John Rigas did not build a shell company. He did not hide behind layers of corporate fiction. He built something real, something that mattered to real people, and then he hollowed it out from the inside. He used his own sons to do it. He used the word brothers, the literal translation of Adelphia, as the name for an enterprise that would eventually betray everyone who trusted it. The cable is still in the walls of those houses in Cudasport. Someone else's name is on the bill now, but for 50 years, it was his.